Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode, we're going to be talking about Drake Maye, quarterback out of North Carolina, based on his analytics profile or data profile or statistical profile or whatever other name or jargon you want to use. We're going to be looking at his passing efficiency data, his mobile quarterback score, and look at some pro comparisons based on data. Now, for the mobile quarterback score, this is the process to how I get that number. First off, you start with raw statistical data gathered from school websites or college football reference, which is probably my main source for most of these statistics. The raw statistics are transformed into market share score, or the raw statistics is saved in the system. So some of the statistics I'm transforming into a number, and other statistics I'm just leaving them the way they are. The transformed statistic or raw statistic is then ranked against positional peers to get a percentile score. So instead of doing z-scores, instead of talking about, well, he's 4 standard deviations from the mean, I'm just giving you a point blank 0 to 100. The 100 is the best, 0 is the worst score. I think most people who don't do data or don't do statistics can look at that and go, that's what it is. I think anybody can look at 100, 0 to 100 and know what that is. Now, the data I use for the mobile quarterback score is the offensive market share score, the touchdown market share score, the touchdown percentage score, and the average yards per touch. All those scores, so I score those individually, then I add them all up together and then rank them against their positional peers to get the mobile quarterback score. So, based on that process, this is how Drake Maye did phenomenally well. Now, the mobile quarterback score is more descriptive than predictive. So it doesn't necessarily tell you whether or not the quarterback is a good quarterback or not, as much as he was a mobile quarterback. He was a quarterback who was getting yards with his legs. He was a quarterback that was getting touchdowns with his legs, those types of things. So it's not necessarily going to tell you whether he's great or good or bad, as much as just kind of tell you how he was as a football player, what he did well as a football player. Because the starter average, the Pro Bowl average, and the All-Pro average are basically average for most of those scores. And then the thresholds, as you can clearly see, most of the thresholds are not that fantastic in terms of, a lot of All-Pro quarterbacks, well, not a lot, but some All-Pro quarterbacks were not very good as mobile quarterbacks. Tom Brady. Pro Bowl quarterbacks, same difference. Starter quarterbacks, same difference. So it's more, again, descriptive rather than predictive. It's still important to know, but that is what it is. And this current data set for the statistic includes 1,276 quarterbacks since the 1956 NFL draft class. Going to the next point, the quarterback score. This is how I get that score, and this kind of shows you the process with that. The raw statistic is gathered from a school website or college football reference. So this could be the completion percentage. This could be the touchdown to interception ratio. That raw statistic is then ranked against positional peers on a 10-year sample. SOS, or strength of schedule scores, and SRS, which is strength of team scores, are then added to add context and depth to the production. So what does that mean? Well, if a quarterback put up 90 plus percentile production, but he played at East Carolina, that's different from a guy at Alabama putting up those types of numbers, or at Ohio State or at Michigan. It adds a different layer, a different context to the data to kind of give you that kind of information, and it does show up in terms of projections. Then that score is then ranked against every positional peer in the database, regardless of the year that they played, because again, it's a 10-year sample, so I'm not going to run into the issue of having to compare Joe Montana's completion percentage to what people did today. I'm comparing Joe Montana's completion percentage compared to the players that he played with in college at the time that he played. And then comparing that again to everybody else once that's done. That's how you get the quarterback score. And this is where they stack up, or where Drake Maye stacks up in terms of that particular metric. He had 88.21 in terms of his best quarterback score, or BQS score. And he had a 74.58 career quarterback score, or CQS score. This sample size, in particular, is a study of 5,359 college football performances since the 1956 NFL draft class. Now, What this means in terms of just looking at the production scores is that he didn't quite hit the All-Pro average in terms of his best quarterback score. He did hit at least above the threshold for All-Pro quarterbacks, and his career score did not hit above the average career quarterback score, which is 86.43 at the position. But he did hit at least above the Pro Bowl average, or at least I should say near the Pro Bowl average in terms of that particular metric. This of course excludes outliers. There definitely are some outliers in this particular metric, but the majority of the players, pretty much every single one of them, except for maybe one or two, hit these particular numbers in terms of these considerations. And again, All Pro is three-time first team All Pro, three-time Pro Bowl, and then at least 64 starts in their career. So Drake Maye tested well. In terms of comparisons, so here are some pro comparisons based on his MQS, BQS, CQS, and EAV scores, or expected approximate value. So expected approximate value takes into account things like his age and those other sort of factors, kind of, kick out some players that already had issues because they were kind of old. When you look at his data, tests very similar to T. Martin, Sam Howell, Drake Maye, of course, because he's Drake Maye, Drew Stanton, and Bobby Douglas. Probably the only quarterback in this particular metric who really stands out the most is Bobby Douglas. Some of you guys don't even know who the hell Bobby Douglas is, but he was a good quarterback back in, say, the 60s and the 70s kind of era. He was a pretty good quarterback back then. Howell, of course, has translated pretty well to the NFL. There are still some debate whether or not Washington's going to keep him or not, but he's okay. And of course, Drew Stanton has had his moments here and there, but never really quite became a long-term starter. Does this mean that Drake Maye is a bust? No. This just means that his data is a little sketchy because, again, there are some concerns in terms of his CQS score. There's also another concern, which comes back to my overall outlook on him, which is this. Drake Maye profiles as a Pro Bowl starter level prospect based on his overall data. He had a up and down college career because, again, in 2022, he was 88th percentile in terms of his production. And then he followed it up with a 60 percentile score in 2023. So he kind of regressed a little bit. He kind of Sam Darnold it a little bit, to be honest. And I haven't really done a lot of data in terms of quarterbacks who had a really great season and then regressed in their following season, but that is a concern. He regressed. He was really great, and then he regressed in terms of his overall statistics. Again, every football statistic is a team-based statistic. They're playing on a team, so if the team gets worse, yeah, their statistics are going to get worse. But that was kind of the issue with Drake Maye from that kind of perspective. And then, of course, you look at the fact that there are still some question marks in his projection based on the comparisons that he had in this particular data set. However, he is still worth a late day 1 to day 2 selection if he came out in any year. So regardless of the draft class that you're looking at, he would still be considered a first round to second round prospect in terms of all that stuff. Now, where is he going to go in this particular draft? I mean, most people project him in the top 10 of this particular draft. I think that's a little high. I think this quarterback class, when I kind of take a good glance at it, is not exactly as good as everybody thinks it is going to be. But, I mean, it's still a good profile. Again, I'm not hating on Drake Maye. I still think he's a top 5 quarterback, or at least top 3 quarterback in this particular draft class. But he's not a generational prospect, which is what a lot of people have been saying about him in this particular year. And I think a lot of that stuff is a little overblown because generational is a little different to a data scientist. I could tell you very simply what a generational prospect is based on the numbers that they put up in college football. Now, whether or not they translate it or not is a different question altogether, but I can at least say that, okay, he is generational from a statistical standpoint. He was a generational prospect. Drake Maye doesn't really fit that description. But after all that is said and done, thank you so much for watching today's video. My name is Jim Coburn. You can follow my other work at Gemetrics on Twitter, Jimetrics. You can also check me out on patreon.com/jcoburn. That's COBERN. Go to the description as well if you want to know information. And thank you guys so much for watching this show. Peace!